I am.
Everybody ready? Yes, Dr. Nick.
Oh, yes, someone got it. Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross and I'm the founder at designcuts.com, and this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert Ian Barnard, American retro design expert Dustin Lee, and the incredibly talented South African illustrator Lisa Glanz. This week we're continuing our discussion about being a creative versus an entrepreneur. We tackle many more of your questions and share our thoughts and experiences around this all-important topic. So without further ado, let's get into the show. And we're back. So this is a continuance of last time. We were talking all about being a creative versus being an entrepreneur. We were talking about some creatives perhaps being a bit resistant or not loving the idea of the business stuff and that sucking to them and they just want to do the art. If you didn't listen to it, go listen to the last episode. That will segue nicely into this one. And we did, in fact, leave you guys on a cliffhanger. So over to my main man, Mr. Barnard. Take it away, buddy. What question was it?
So this was from Rebecca, and Tom will tell you what her surname is.
No, I need to look. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I've done this every time. I've actually apologized personally to her for the same reason. It is, stick with me.
Polutsak.
Yeah, Rebecca Pilutsak.
Polutsak. It sounds Polish or something. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. What's Rebecca's
I'll read
question?
The question. Using sites like Patreon still require some level of business savvy and understanding. You still need to know what you're offering, why people should care about it, what void you're filling, how to market yourself, donation levels, etc. They absolutely are not doing all of that for you.
Nope.
So Patreon, we mentioned in the previous episode, but just to give you a quick rundown, it's a way of creatives to be able to be paid to be a creative, really. So people pay a monthly subscription to you, and for that they get some perks. Maybe when you release some products or when you release a video, they get it early, or they get it discounted, not discontinued, discounted. And there's a different list, and you can have different levels of how much they pay towards what you do. A bit like, if you had, like I was saying in the previous one, like if you're like a Netflix and providing stuff for other people, really, and they sort of pay you monthly.
Or it's like a rolling Kickstarter, in the way Kickstarters have those tiered rewards, don't they? And I believe you can do that with Patreon, where people can pay different amounts. So like Ian, you could do a custom lettering piece for your top patrons and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so. I did look into it. I say I haven't gone down that route just because of I feel pressure when someone's put some money up front and I've got to deliver. But I looked up and I looked under sort of lettering and like crafts and stuff like that, and there was quite a few channels that weren't massive, but they had quite a load of people subscribing in terms of paying subscriptions to them. So you could actually make from an early offset of obviously not just straight out of the doors because you wouldn't have an audience, but if you gain an audience over maybe 6 months to a year, you could get a reasonable income just by doing that. If you were putting stuff out there, like maybe it's showing people how to paint, showing people how to, whatever it might be, lettering, click fee, photography, that you could, if you built up an audience and giving value, could get a good amount of people subscribing to your Patreon, and that could be one of your regular incomes. And if you only spend a couple of days a week doing that, and Patreon supplies for that, then it's a great way to supply that. And then you just look at other ways you can earn money, whether through client work and stuff like that. So,
but just to clarify, from what I can see, and I hate to comment on stuff that I haven't done myself because I'll put my hands up. I haven't got a Patreon, so I don't 100% know. But from what I can ascertain, it primarily works if you have your own existing community.
Yes.
And then you encourage them to go and support you on this site. It's not so much that you slap your stuff up on that website and people start discovering you through that platform as the primary means, and suddenly you're earning loads of money. It seems to work best for people like you that have a fairly large established audience or a smaller but very engaged audience.
Yeah.
And then encourage them to go and support you, where the benefit is that they handle all the transactions, a lot of the customer service. They give you a platform so you don't have to faff around creating a website. So it reduces barrier to entry, but the same kind of rules apply where you don't just magically get given a business. You actually need to put in the work.
Yeah. So I think there's there might be drawbacks to it, I suppose, because I with the donation levels, how do you set how much people should donate, how why people would feel like, it says why people should care about what you're doing. I suppose that comes from how much value you're pushing out there. What is it that you're, if you're really niche down and you're giving tutorials about how to create certain things, then I think you'll have that audience anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I always struggle with what the perks would be apart from drawing something hand drawn. But then I like, do I want to do that? Or
I think you can do a lot of stuff, and you'd be surprised people do pay for like behind the scenes access and all kinds of things. But as a follow-up question, I can already hear some of the listeners be like, well, straight away you're taking me down a route of having to like provide value for people and educational material and maybe turn into a bit of a teacher. I just want to sit and do art.
That's not true though. I just started a Patreon account, and like where I was offering stuff, and I researched a ton of people, and plenty of people on there are doing zero teaching.
Okay. So how are they making that money?
Well, there's one girl, for instance, who is making a significant amount. I think it was like between $10,000 and $20,000, and she just draws, and she just has a big personality. And so for a certain amount, she'll send you like 3 times a year. She'll send you a drawing, like with like a postcard with a drawing on it. She'll let you see her artwork first. It's purely her creating art, and the higher up the tier you are, the more money she gives. But she teaches nothing. And the other cool thing about Patreon is that you don't have to promise to give people things every month or every week. You can say, hey, I don't know how much I'm going to put stuff out. I think I'm going to do it this much, but sometimes I won't. So there's no pressure to actually provide things on a schedule.
But isn't that like, if I paid for something and they then weren't really bringing much out, I'd feel a bit cheated. You know what I mean?
Well, if they tell you that they're not going to, I mean, like this girl that is doing very well on there, she's just like, here's how often I think I'm going to do it. And sometimes when she's not busy, she delivers a lot. Sometimes she doesn't. I think if you promise something and didn't do it, that would be the case. But if you tell people, it's fine.
I think I struggle a little bit with the value exchange because for me, with people like that, it feels a bit like the tip in the jar. People used to have it on their website, like buy me a coffee, and people would donate. And I don't want to undermine it. I absolutely think we should support creatives, but it almost feels more like kind of charitable support as opposed to they're signing up because they get X, Y, Z bonuses and value back. My mind tends to be more value driven. But if it works, if people literally are like, hey, I dig what you're putting out, here's money, I think that is the actual fundamental idea behind it, even more than value exchange. It's supporting creatives. And I saw videos from their CEO, Jack, what's his name?
Dorsey?
No, Conte? Maybe? Hold on.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
With the beard.
We're doing well with names.
Yeah,
today.
we're really not. Patreon CEO. Yeah, Jack Conte. Sweet. So, I saw a video from Jack, and he was pretty much saying that is the point. Like, they're the answer to the thing of, I'm a creative, how do I get paid for it? And it's meant to be hugely disruptive because this is not a concept that people are used to. I put out my art and people support it. The same way we have over time, right? We've supported incredible musicians and creative talents in all kinds of industries. It's that support around your work, which is awesome. It's a real noble cause.
Yeah, I think it's amazing if people can pull that off. I really do. Damn, I wish I could do that. But personally, I feel that's too risky and not sustainable in terms of a business because you can't control it as much. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because I don't have an account myself. But for me, I'm a bit of a traditional person when it comes to building a business, and that to me feels a little bit too shaky foundation niche.
Yeah.
Like it feels like if something goes wrong, where you left. So for me, I'm with you, Tom. I do the whole like you're paying me and I'm gonna give you something in return. That's just who I am.
But if you don't like that, if you literally just want to do art, maybe it's a good option.
Yeah, if you literally want to do art and you want to give it a go, please don't. I mean, go for it. And if you make it work, I mean, that's just incredible, really. But just in terms for me, I personally would feel that it's too risky to.
Let me give you one more example. Like, I don't work for Patreon, to be clear. I have no dog in this fight. But I did just recently spend a lot of time looking into how people were making it work. So on YouTube, there's a really huge business. And by huge, I mean like in terms of a small business, it's a huge business, called the Vlogbrothers, right? They own a couple different sites about like science, about history, about philosophy. They're each different YouTube channels. And you go to the site and there's another one called Geitstatter. I don't even know, some weird German name. And they teach stuff too. These are all teaching sites with animated videos. And on that one, like if you go to their Patreon, they're getting like over 1 million views per thing. So they're getting some ad revenue there. But if you go to their Patreon page, which they always advertise, you can pay just $1, which lots of people do that just to say, I'm supporting you, thumbs up on that. But then you can pay a little more and like you'll get a little bit of bonus footage. Or if you pay enough, like they'll make you like a little character in the animation that is like you, that will like show up in one of the videos like once a year.
That's cool.
So
yeah, but that's cool. That's
and the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
The top tier could be jump on a call with me for 8 hours stint of me consulting you through how to be a better artist. In the case of Lisa, right? Imagine that's the top tier for like $1,000 to jump on a call with Lisa for hours and be mentored. That would be cool.
Yeah, and you could. And I guess like what I want to make clear is like this is not an unstable business in my opinion. This is a subscription model. People pay and it automatically continues to take $1 out of their account. These are the tiers normally: 1, 3, 5, 7, and then lots of times 15, 50, 100. This is a subscription model, which is one of the most stable models you can have. So in terms of risk, there's way more risk in selling a one-off product than there is in a subscription model if you're providing something.
But if you, I mean, maybe I'm not understanding your example with the artist that wasn't really teaching or anything. She was just, I don't know, what she's just filming herself drawing. Is that right?
I can't remember. I think she's delivering art and then she's providing art that she doesn't make available to the public. So it's the same thing. I mean, the video people.
Oh, okay. Well, then there is value because, sorry, then I misunderstood it. I just thought she was literally like, you can watch me draw and you have to pay to do that.
No. I mean, you can give anything you want, but I'm just saying like Patreon, like the word I think is making people confused. Patreon is a subscription model business idea for artists and creatives. That's essentially what it is. Subscriptions are one of the most reliable ways to make money. There's nothing more risky or harder to make money about it.
Okay.
Not to mention people can give you $1 or $5 a month.
Yeah. And when we're talking about that first sale, it might be easier to reach $1 a month from a true fan. And then again, you can scale up from there.
So YouTube have brought out something similar, I think. I don't know whether this is been around a while, but there's channel memberships. So with channel memberships, viewer pay a monthly recurring fee of $4.99 to get unique badges, new emoji, members only posts in the community tab, access to unique custom perks offered by the creators, such as exclusive live streams, extra videos, or shout outs.
I think the one thing that would put me off is, what if that business, like we touched on last episode, went away and he'd invested so much?
They must have.
That's a good point. good.
Yeah. Okay, shall we jump into the next question? I feel we're going to have to go rapid through these because there is an awful lot of them. Okay, yeah. So I know we have answered a question from Tanya already. This is a really good one though, which came from a few people as well, saying, "How do you balance creative time versus business time?" People always want to know that,
Big
right?
question. Yep.
So, what do we all think in a nutshell? Because I'm gonna hold us to account here. We need to be rapid fire with these.
That's tricky. You guys start because this is where you're good at. I'm not.
Okay, for me, it's the same answer I gave on last episode. You need to look at your goals, and if your goal is to have a body of work to sell and you don't have a body of work, then get to creating and create the body of work. If you already have the body of work and now your biggest thing is you need to attract clients, I would disproportionately put like 100% of my time into attracting clients and almost put creating on pause, as painful as that might be, because I believe operating in those extremes is going to get you there quickest. But normally it's a grey area. I mean, normally there will be some degree of both, but it all maps to your immediate goals.
Yeah, it's a good point, because if I just look at my kind of process, when I'm creating a product, a lot of my energy is going into that. A big portion of my days is spent on that. Very little is spent on the marketing and business side. And then when I launch the product, almost all my energy is going into marketing and business side and everything. So it's going to ebb and flow the whole time.
Yep.
I don't think it's a set formula per day. I think it depends on your project.
So let's give the example of Rachel, one of my lovely followers. She's the one who's doing the bespoke gift thing where she's lettering on all different types of gifts. So imagine, what's something really personal to you, Lisa, in terms of an object, dancing shoes or something. What might it be?
Yeah. Okay, let's go with the dancing shoes.
So dancing shoes. And then you might have a favorite quote. And she puts the two together.
Yeah.
And I love this business idea. I keep telling her, I think it's got real legs. So you get a real personal quote to you, and it's on an object which she then finds and puts it on this object for you. And that could be awesome for like weddings. It's like Ian did for his friend. He lettered on a guitar, which was relevant for them.
That's so cool.
I love how personal that is. So what about Rachel? She's constantly, hopefully, going to be making sales. There's no product launch followed by promotion, ebb and flow. It should be constant. So how would she split her time?
Well, I guess it depends on how much work she currently has. So in other words, if she has 10 jobs lined up, she's going to have to obviously push them out depending on their deadlines. And then in between, you're not going to be absolutely ignoring your business side. You're going to be doing small things like, Instagramming, Facebook, whatever. You're still going to do if you have a newsletter list, you're still going to do your newsletters. But I would say if you don't have any work at that time, then that's when you're going to do massive amount of marketing and trying to get work, etc.
Yeah, because otherwise, who are you doing the work for?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'd go back to what Lisa said from last episode, which is fantastic advice from B School, where she's like, ask yourself, is this going to get me money? That I think that question, like you were saying, Lisa, will almost always dictate what the right thing to do is.
Definitely.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay, who's up next? Next question.
Let's see. Okay, it's kind of sort of similar to what we just mentioned. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So Susan Brand says, being an entrepreneur, you need to hustle daily to get new work in, and that is probably one of the hardest things. Either you have too much or too little work coming in, and I seem to always be stressed about that. Finding the balance is key, though. I mean, isn't that so true? We spend so much time stressing about when we've got too much work, we're overstressed and overworked. When we don't have any work, then we're freaking out about that. It's like, you spend your life stressed.
Yeah, it's true. What did you say, Dustin, recently? You were like, either you're worried about making money, and when you have money, you're worried about someone taking it.
Exactly.
I think, personally, I think it's kind of difficult to get away from that as an entrepreneur. I think it's one of those things that we have to... It's like that dragon we have to tame.
Yeah,
it's part of the deal. I think personally. Maybe
I think you need to find fun
in
what you do. That's the best way to counteract it. You need to just stop and remind yourself you can have a bit of fun. Like right now, at the time of recording this. It's our 5th birthday event at Design Cards. It's going really well, but I always have the concerns about paying the staff and you know the wider look at the business. I have those stresses that everyone has. But this week I've been running around, like we were doing cartwheels around the office, for example. Like one of our team who's way more agile than me, we were celebrating a win for the birthday event. She did like 2 beautiful cartwheels. I like flung myself on the ground like an old man attempting one. I was like jumping on the sofas and high-fiving
Did you
people.
record that?
Not mine, just as, thankfully.
And Tom, do I see a Jenga puzzle behind you?
Hold on, where is it? There?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it's actually really big. It's giant Jenga, but it's just in the background. But yeah, like that kind of stuff. Like this Friday, we're all going to be super busy, but I'm forcing the whole team to stop work an hour early, and we're all going to go down the pub and get a little bit tipsy and celebrate a job well done for the last 2 weeks of hard graft. Like and whether you have a team or work with yourself, you got to treat yourself. You got to have fun, because those stresses are never going to go away. That's just part and parcel of being an entrepreneur. You just have to accept it. All you can do is counterbalance that on the seesaw of stress by adding some nice shit in.
Yep. Well said.
Cool. Ian, do you want to pick a question out?
Yep.
Do you care to share what that question might be?
Sorry, I was just reading.
No, it's fine. I can see you reading, but sometimes I forget that we're on an audio podcast. It's just going to be dead air.
Share the rest of the group.
Go.
Okay. Little Gem Studio. As someone that works 30 hours and freelances on the side, it's hard to know how much time I should dedicate to outreach, etc., and the feeling that I need to spend free time creating, practicing to get better at my craft.
Is that similar to the one we just answered with the time balance, though, of creating versus business, where the time should go?
It is similar, but a lot of people may not have kind of contexted it that way. Is that a word?
Yeah, I think it is very similar, but she did specifically mention, 2 nuances: outreach, specifically with the business side, and in terms of the creativity, getting better at her craft. So before we were talking about just creating, kind of imagining they're already good enough, and then business being everything. So let's maybe focus on the getting better at your craft, because there's a tension there, right? If I'm just doing the business stuff, am I actually going to go backwards in terms of how good I am? Which is something Justin and I particularly have probably found. Like we never create anymore, so we're going to suck more at design.
I mean, it's difficult to know what if I just take my business as an example, I can only say I got better as I was creating products. I know this sounds bad for customers because it means they were my guinea pigs in a way in the beginning, but that's the way it goes. I mean, even as a freelance graphic designer, your first few clients, they're getting the younger Lisa, and then as you do work, as you grow, you get better and better. So that's actually one way to really improve your skill, is to really just do the work.
I like it.
But obviously you want to push yourself and find new techniques, or make sure that you're up to trend and so on. But personally, I think the best way is to actually just get down and graft.
To get paid to practice. So who cares if you skew a bit more business at the start to get those first clients in, because literally getting paid by them, you will be getting better at the craft.
Yeah.
That's smart.
And I tell you, when you have your own business, you learn the hard way very fast. And so when you make a mistake, it's like, it's your pocket, it's your money. So if ever you want to learn quickly, that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about when I was a graphic designer, and that I would purposely learn, I would put aside time. This sounds really organised of me. It's not. This only happened once.
Once and only once. Organised of you.
I would put a time aside. I bought a book on, because I used InDesign as one of my main programs, because I did a lot of desktop publishing in terms of like magazines or brochures, whatever it was. I'd probably use InDesign. But especially when I was working on a magazine, I got a book on InDesign specifically to find out how to do paragraph styles. Mm-hmm. Which is like where you can set the style of a paragraph in terms of its type, of its the line height and all that, because I could see the potential that if that could really save me time, which is obviously money as well. But if you're employed, it just saves you stress. And it did. And it literally cut my time from like doing, say it took me 3 days, took it down to like a day and a half, because I could just put shortcuts on them and, do that. But I had to allocate that time to learn it. And I don't know whether I did it in work time or outside of work time, but I suppose it's just cornering off time to learn. So maybe give yourself an hour, if you've got a couple of hours in the evening, give yourself an hour for craft, hour for business, and making sure you stick to those things. I would probably find that quite hard, because I was able to do that. Things I have this thing I realized the other day is where I can get to a certain level of learning and I'm fine. I'm just like, absorbing it all up. And then I suddenly get to a point where I just learnt it. And for some reason, the spark just goes. And and then that pushing it to the next level is really hard for me. Yeah. So I just like get to the right, get to a consistent level. And then I have to and then it just it's hard work now.
Plateau.
So
yeah.
Plateaus. Yeah. And I found that I was doing a course on one of the learning sites, and I went through it and got through the main bulk of it, and then there was like extra bits, and this is how you do blah blah blah, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it, and I could have just stopped and I'm like, that's it. I've learned the basics. That's all I need. Go on to the next bit. But I think it's just allocating your time and just maybe spending it wisely.
Yeah, and even if you don't have that time to allocate, you can, because what I used to do in the beginning of my freelance business, I didn't have that extra time to, learn, stuff on the side. I would literally learn as I went. So as I got a job in, it was this massive long annual report that, as you said, Ian, it required like masses and masses of style setting. And as I was going through this, I just thought there's got to be a quicker way. You Google it, you figure it out, and then you keep going. And that, so before by the time you finish that actual project, you've already learned, say, 3-4 new things in your program. So you could also approach it that way. So maybe the next project you have, you could say, all right, I know this much. Maybe I need to, there's something else I can learn in that app that's going to help me work faster.
Yeah.
Instead of actually allocating that time, if you don't have
I would take on most jobs, even though I hadn't a clue what I was doing.
Me too.
We want you to do this massive banner that blah, 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 blah. Never done one before. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I took anything, man.
Scary.
I love that though. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
I remember getting an email, like when I was starting and just trying to make enough money to make my rent every month. I remember the email would come in and someone was interested, and then I would do it, or I would get the email, and then I'd be so excited and also so terrified. And then when I talked to them, and then it turned out that I was going to do it, and then they sent me that payment, it was like excitement of getting money, and it was wanting to throw up because now I really have to do this. It was a whole...
And I bet you learned pretty fast.
Like this is one of my favorite things in business as well as creativity. And it's such an asset. Some of our business partners and shareholders who are connected to a bigger corporate preach this all the time of like, just say yes and then scramble around and find a way to make it work. Like that's all you can do. And I love that, rather than always coming up with like, oh no, here's reasons why it wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump into the next question, if you guys don't mind, because it's very specific who it's aimed at. It's a 2-part one. Apparently Dustin and I need to answer the first part, and Ian and Lisa answer the second part. So this is from Rachel, who I mentioned before with the Gives business, Bespoke Gives. Her Instagram is Free South Jersey. Go check it out, because I'm really kind of championing her. I want to support her with this. So if that Bespoke Give thing sounds cool to you, go and drop her a message.
Free South Jersey. Love ya.
Yeah.
I've definitely talked to her on Instagram a lot.
Oh yeah, she's great. Super friendly. So anyway, part one of her question is, what are some surprisingly creative parts of the business side? And this is for you and I, Dustin. So you know how people like paint business as grey? My argument's always, actually, you can have a lot of creativity that you put into your business and marketing. Yeah. Do you want to take this one first?
Yeah. I mean, most of business. Okay, so this actually ties in perfectly to something I'm launching a business course thing. I surveyed a bunch of people, and one of the top questions I got was, how do you stand out when you're starting? And I think, Tom, you'd probably agree that in business, the things that make you stand out are anytime you do something that's different, that's fun, that's unique, that's surprising, that's counter to what everyone else is doing. So, for example, like we had just released this pack called the Mid-Century Procreate Brush Pack. And to promote it, we did so many fun things. Yeah, it was technically business, but like first I got onto a Facebook Live and I just started just talking about it randomly. I had no idea what I was going to talk about. And then later that night, me and Brad got on and we did an Instagram Live. And like I held the iPad up with like preview pictures and like slid through him like Vanna White while he talked about what was going on. And then we set up
cool.
a webinar and like we just like made what we thought would be the funnest webinar. We don't, and like you said, we don't even know exactly what the webinar will be tomorrow. We just know we're going to teach, but we're like, how do you get Procreate onto the screen to teach? We have some ideas, but we don't know how it's going to work, but that's the fun of it. So then we're doing a webinar for it, or we started giving away free gifts to people that bought as a surprise right after they bought. Or I made a really fun video where they got it the day after they purchased, and the video was like, hey, surprise, I just wanted to thank you for this. Thank you for grabbing this pack. And then it takes them to like a couple extra bonus brushes. So all those things are really fun, and it kind of feels like you're getting to give people gifts for Christmas.
So I seriously view all that like art. It's like an art masterpiece when it comes together. And the same as art, your art has objectives, right? It's generally to make people think or feel, or maybe it adds clarity or something like that. And so the same way, I don't know, Banksy as an artist tends to be pretty socially disruptive and really get people to think. You can do that with your business and marketing if you want to be an industry disruptor and do stuff that no one else dares to do and stand out in that way. Or you can make people feel really warm and fuzzy inside the same way that Lisa's illustrations probably do. And there's so many angles into this stuff. I think there's endless creativity. I think a lot of design in particular, maybe more so than art, is problem solving. And I think business is one big problem to be creatively solved and figured out. And that's the least gray, boring thing in the world. Like, that's really fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Because think about businesses you buy from. Isn't it because you find something about them exciting? I mean, I don't think anyone
Yeah.
buys, except for maybe getting your toilet unclogged. Like most of the time you're like, oh, this business is cool. Like I bought a coffee subscription last night. It was from Crema or something like that. It looked so cool when they showed the profiles and asked my flavor profiles of what I liked. It was super neat, dude. Like I didn't buy it because I was like, need coffee, must do, simple transaction to get more coffee. Like I was like, let's make this fun, you know?
Exactly. And for
Yeah.
me, it's all about brand. I love brand. Branding is one of my favorite parts of building businesses. But I think branding is regarded as a design exercise. I'm going to come up with the logo and the colors, and here's the brand. For me, it permeates into every part of the business, all of your marketing, because a solid brand is consistent and congruent across everything. So from the onboarding
Yep.
process to the email marketing that happens, to the Facebook graphics, to the copywriting, that all should be consistent and come together to match your, it should be on the same page as your logo and everything else. So they're all kind of arms of this thing. And on a final note, I think it's the biggest asset in the world to be a creative and run a business, because I frankly don't know how solo entrepreneurs run a business when they can't design for shit. And every time they need a tiny Facebook graphic or a banner for their website, they have to contact someone, get ripped off, wait
Yeah.
days to come back and be like, oh,
No,
it's not
it's
quite right.
crazy.
It's like, you must move so slowly. For me, it's been the biggest asset in the world, learning business and design simultaneously, because I could literally fire out stuff. I could get a website up in a day. I could like do my Facebook graphic in 5 minutes. That still happens today. I'm like, oh no, we need that.
Yeah.
Brr, done. Because I'm a designer.
Yeah.
Like I would freaking hate to have to rely on us people, as by which I mean designers, because I could only do the business stuff. So it's an asset to bring your creativity into your business.
It is.
Yeah.
And like I had said earlier, sorry, I'll wrap this up real quick so I got the second part of this question. But like I said earlier, I got into doing design because when I was trying to start a business, I knew I needed to know design to try to get things done. That's how I
Yeah.
got into it. I mean, it literally goes hand in hand. You're at such an advantage if you're a
So
designer
interesting.
or creative.
Massively. Okay, so part
Yeah.
2 from Rachel's question is, and what are some surprisingly businessy parts of the creative side? And she wanted to hear what Ian and Lisa thought about this. So in terms of the actual art and creativity you do, are there any more business feeling parts connected to that?
I actually think it's exactly the same as what you were just discussing, how it's finding ways to stand out. If you look at the market out there, it's so inundated with, there's a lot of noise going on. So how do you stand out amongst so many products or so many design services or whatever? You need to do something that's unique and different. And I think when you're creating something, whether it's your brand, a product, or whatever, you need to think, how is this going to be received in the market? And that I think about all the time when I'm creating something. I don't want to just disappear into the sea of all the stuff that's out there. So what's going to set me apart? And that's what I think about all the time. I also think of the end customer, their user experience, how it's going to help them. How's it going to make their life easier? Why would they buy this? So it's all things I think that are business related, but also make my creative journey that much more interesting, because I'm not only thinking of myself, I'm like thinking, okay, so how's that person gonna, enjoy using it, or
maybe I misunderstood the
value out
question
of it.
wrong. I felt like they were asking what's the surprisingly boring part of being creative.
Well, no,
Or
because
did-
that's viewing business in a bad way. I think genuinely Lisa nailed it, because in
my
her
bad.
in the art
Sorry.
in the art itself, you're thinking about differentiation, product market fit, all of this stuff. You'll literally
Yeah.
be there illustrating a cute bunny, being like, how is this going to end up being sold? So you have your business hat on
Exactly.
constantly, even when you're creating.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be careful, obviously, because you don't want to be auditing yourself so much that your natural creativity stops flowing. But at the same time, I mean, what I do is that I set a parameter in the beginning of, say, a project and the aim, and I allow myself to evolve. If it changes, if it evolves, that's fine. But at least I have some kind of goal. How is my end customer going to be using this? So what are they going to be using it for? And that kind of sets me off. And I think just randomly, it's the same when you get a client for a graphic design job. A client says, well, can you design a flyer? You're not just going to like randomly start designing. You're going to think, okay, who's going to see the flyer? What is the flyer for? Who's going to be reading it? What do they want to achieve? You've got to think of all the business side
Yeah,
of
we're not
things.
5-year-olds
really-
finger painting.
Exactly. Yeah. And to me, I find that side quite exciting, because it's marrying these two worlds that shouldn't really be going together. And it's like a problem. You're like solving this problem that's like, well, it shouldn't really be a problem in the first place, in the sense of, why are you thinking about business when you should be just creating? And in actual fact, you need to be thinking about that all
Why
the
don't
time.
we, instead of viewing them as enemies who repel each other, view them as teammates and friends?
Oh, they so are, and they don't have to be this. I think people get as I said in the previous episode, they get the wrong impression about business side of things. It doesn't have to be this stale, businessman in his tweed little suit and all upright, and it doesn't have to be like.
I mean, he's a great guy,
you know?
Greg, bless him.
Yeah, he's a
But-
great guy. But yeah, it really, sometimes take his tie off, let him swing his jacket around the
I'm glad you
room.
said
I don't
jacket. Ian, what do you think on this front?
I was just thinking that actually, like, being a graphic designer for most of my life is that you automatically have the business side anyway. Because, like, if you didn't have the business, you wouldn't be a graphic designer, if that makes sense. Because you can't, like, I wasn't graphic designing just for fun.
Yeah.
I would,
graphic designer.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
That's a good word.
Ian,
Can you hand
sorry,
over that?
Yeah.
Graphic
You-
designing?
You just made me think. I don't know if you saw on my story yesterday. I put out something saying, being an aspiring entrepreneur who hates the business side is like trying to be a painter who hates painting.
That's true.
Anyway, back to you.
and so there's sort of there's obviously there's more elements. Obviously you have the client stuff, which is and then you have more stuff surrounding it. You can build on that initial part of the business. but I suppose what we're looking at more is the arts and crafts part of stuff, which is transfers there. Like you say, there's the hobbyist doing it just for fun. So whether that's calligraphy, whether that's sewing, whether it's painting, whether it's cooking, whatever it may be, and then taking it into a business realm, which is I think me being a graphic designer already been there with something I liked doing anyway before I start, so I enjoyed doing graphic design, and there was the business as well, because that's the only way you can be a really graphic designer. Whereas if I'd started out as just the craft, I think it would be a trickier thing, because you've got to get into a world that you're not actually familiar with, and it's not actually something that I think, like with the lettering stuff, if I hadn't seen the custom lettering, because like the calligraphy side of things is harder, I suppose, to get into. That's where it is, you're making it, it's satisfying to do, and then you want to take that satisfying thing and then turn it into something that can be profitable. And that's when it's not as clear, and that's when there's that transference of, when you're doing stuff for business side, it's a completely different thing than just doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
And that can bring, and then I think you have to decide whether you're up for going into a place where you're going to have to do stuff that's you're going to have to do, like doing calligraphy and not enjoying it because it's got to bring in some money.
Mm-hmm.
There's times where I do lettering and I'm like doing it because I need some money, but it's not, like, I'm not feeling it, maybe. I'm not in the right place, but I've got to do it because of the money coming in, or I've got to make something because the money's coming. Because I'm not 100% like, I'm doing lettering all the time. I don't want to give that impression that I'm just like Mr. Happy and I'm like, this is brilliant, just lettering here and lettering there and everything's just brilliant. Sometimes,
I do get that impression though.
Yeah.
Until you said that, I literally thought it was like that.
Because like my whole life revolves around it. I can't keep up that enjoying it all the time. Sometimes I just like I'm here and I'm just like, man, I'm really looking forward to a holiday, and I'll probably make myself not take any writing tools with me just because I need to switch off, because otherwise I will begin to hate it because I'm too wrapped up in it.
Are you ever like doing a piece of lettering and then you just start raging and then you're just like
stabbing the canvas,
scratching all over the paper?
What happens is I draw some letters and I look at it and I'm just like, it looks like what it was before I started, and I'm like, what's going on? And I think I sometimes, do you know when you get in, I hope this doesn't happen with heart surgeons or brain surgeons.
Where they start stabbing down like Dustin just did. That wouldn't be good.
I messed it up.
It's like Pulp Fiction. No, you don't got to stab her 3 times.
Stupid body.
Like, I'm just trying to draw the letters and they're just like, they look terrible. And I'm like, what's going on? I can't draw. It's like, when Superman loses his...
I love that Kryptonite syndrome for heart surgeons.
Yeah.
I just can't even fix this thing today. I'm having a day.
But yeah, like when Superman and the Kryptonite, and he's suddenly like, he can't do the stuff he used to. It sometimes feels like that, and it normally out of a place of being absolutely knackered or just needing a break from something that is so.
But do you ever just want to like punish the paper or pen and you start hitting it or throw the pen against a wall, like as a punishment to the pen for not working good to make letters?
Well, considering I now use the Apple Pencil quite a lot, I'm like, that's £120 if I throw that and it breaks.
Oh, but you do think about it. The rage does fill you for a second.
I don't know if it's a rage. It's just like...
Super quickly, because I feel like, Dustin, you're trying to draw out Ian's inner demons. And I'm aware we've got about 5 minutes left. So can we cover 2 super quick?
That is so
It
evil,
really is. It's like
Dustin.
that, I just saw that movie Venom, which sucked, by the way. But it's like Ian's
playing.
Venom.
It's not evil. Come on.
So yeah, super quick. Two solutions which I was suggesting, apart from maybe actually just go work for an agency or get a job in the creative industry, were either team up with a partner who loves the business side or get an agent, which Lisa touched on earlier. And hopefully this would be a good point to wrap the episode, because this covers a bunch of questions about this stuff. Several people asked about both of those things. To jump in really quick myself, I would say I have virtually no experience with agents, but I think, Lisa, you had a couple of good points. You're shaking your head, but you
I don't have any experience either, but I've investigated.
Cool.
It.
Okay, can you shed a bit of light?
Yeah. Well, okay, so the good thing about an agent is that obviously they're the ones touting for business and on your behalf, and they have to go all out because their livelihood relies on it just as much.
But
as
is it like
yours.
recruiters, where they kind of put in work up front and then just become kind of crappy and stop trying?
No, I mean, obviously I'm talking about a decent agent. So if you strike a good relationship, and it's a two-way street, and you promise them continuous work, they can rely on you. They will literally sell your work for you. I mean, I'm talking specifically for as an illustrator and a pattern designer. So obviously the bad thing is they can take up to 50, some even take 60% of the income. But then they will do all the legwork. They will deal with the clients. They'll get the feedback and so on. But that doesn't mean that your job ends there. There's no way that you can literally cut off the business side of things if you're trying to make a living from your art. It just those words in itself show you need to have a business sense. If you're trying to make a living from anything, there's got to be some kind of business behind it. You can't get away.
Same
from
thing
that.
if you have a business partner, right? You're not literally going to sit there in a room just drawing all day and they handle every part of the business and never bother you, because you're a partnership. You need to work with each other. You will be having discussions about what's selling and what isn't, and how you need to adapt some of your work and how they might need it for marketing. And you're both going to want to input ideas each way, right? So I think, like you say, there's no escape. If you really, really don't want anything to do with business, then stop trying to start your own business. Like, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like we keep saying on the program, you need a source of income. So whatever you choose for that to be, it could be waiting at coffee shops, or it could be
building boats.
Yeah, it could be something not related to your craft. If you just want to create all day, then you have to find something to support it. If you don't want to do the business side of things, then you have to get a job doing it. Or if there's something else that you think, actually, I could happily do that, which frees my time up to do the creating. So you have to have that revenue stream, which means you have to have the business side, or you have to be employed for part of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be some sort of,
and even if just quickly, even if you're a fine artist that doesn't deal with clients necessarily, you still have to go and find a gallery who's willing to sell your work for you. There's no way of getting around it. It is what it is. So, Dustin?
Yeah, just adding to that, I mean, so many, if you look at like any great artist, so many of them, it's like a dignity or maybe like a specialness in being an artist that happens. Like, like Marcel Proust, right? Like, arguably wrote one of the greatest novels of, I don't know what, the 19th or 20th century, whatever, In Search of Lost Time. He lived off of money from his dad and kind of squandered it. Or, a lot of famous writers had to write really dumb articles for magazines or under pseudonyms. Artists had to paint houses and stuff like that. I mean, it just goes with the territory, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think it actually makes it more admirable that they made their art, that they actually were like, I'll spend a certain amount of time painting houses so I can go home and do my art on my terms.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people in my following, I've seen this, where they have the part-time or the full-time job. They do art on the side. They believe that the logical next step is they have to turn that into a creative business. And so suddenly they're now racked with concerns and worries and uncertainty and negative introspection. So they've gone from being the hobbyist who gets to go home, escape their job and have fun making art, to now they escape their job they might not like and they've ruined the art. by turning it into something
Yeah.
they don't need to,
Nailed it.
which sucks. And I would say as well, like, I think a lot of people, what they aspire to get out of the business beyond the obvious one of money might actually just be recognition and success. And you can do those things
Yeah.
by simply putting it on social media and over time building a following if you're good enough. And if you put in some work to grow that, you don't need to do the full-on business, taxes, all the stuff which maybe scares you. Like, there's plenty of people, right? They might have 20,000, 100,000, 500,000 followers on social media, but they're not an entrepreneur. They're not necessarily selling anything. They're just a passionate
Yeah.
artist, and people appreciate their work. And then maybe down the line, when they're like, I've got this big following, now I'm going to explore the business side because it's going to be easier. But that might scratch that itch
Yeah.
a bit as well, just putting your art out into the world, and that's awesome. I would say as well, very importantly, I want to get this in on the partnership front. I've had a few of these over the years. I've been very, very badly burnt in the past. So do get stuff in writing. Do realize that even with stuff in writing, you can still get screwed over and hurt if it doesn't work out. So you need to really trust the people you're going to partner with. I believe it absolutely can work. There's tons of examples of talented craftsmen and women and artists and designers who then go and partner with someone who's super geeky about the business side, and it's that perfect combination, and they take it to new heights. It works every single day. But like I say, get the stuff in writing. Don't go in just on trust. It's like a relationship. It can start peachy in honeymoon phase, and it can get very ugly. You can diverge in terms of what you want and so on. But it can be great. Like right now, I love my business partners. We really complement each other. We support each other. That's what a good partnership should be. But just go into anything like that with your eyes open.
Definitely. And I just have one last thing I want to say about backing the business side of things. I was never that way ever starting out. But now that I've been doing it for a couple of years, there's something about that feeling of being proud of building this up yourself from the ground up. And I think artists need to look at it from that point of view rather than seeing it as a business sleazy side of marketing stuff. It's more about building yourself up, your brand, your skill, and everything that goes with it. It's something that you can reflect back and go, wow, I did that on my own, or with help or whatever. But it's gratifying, and it's something you should be excited about, and something you should do for yourself. And yeah, there's going to be stuff that you don't want to do, but that's all part of the deal. It just goes with the
territory. If you really don't want to do it, that's cool too.
Yeah,
like whatever
absolutely.
you want to do is fine, but just
but just know that if you want a business, you have to do the business side. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate this because I started this 2-part series with this stuff swirling around my own head. It's not easy or always obvious, and I think your various perspectives have certainly helped me, so hopefully it's helped the listeners. And it is a point of contention. It's a bit of a kind of hot button topic, or whatever people call it. So if any of this rings true, or you've got follow-up questions, hit us up. You know where we are, Honest Designers, on social media, or find us on our various personal profiles. But I know all 4 of us would be happy and love to help if you're struggling with this stuff.
Yep.
Cool.
Definitely.
Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next time. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. We hope that you found some clarity on how to channel your creativity in an entrepreneurial way, and how the business side of business doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It can actually be pretty awesome and creative at times. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com, or find us over on iTunes and our Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.